Hello, 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 and welcome back to my channel. And today we have the third episode of the most beautiful banknotes. Today I'm going to talk about the Angola 1000 Angolares, 1944, 1951. Actually, this is the first banknote that I'm making a video of from the series that I actually own. Not the issued one, but I own a specimen that you can see in one of my videos. I think the first one from my full collection. Like I did with Portuguese India, I'm gonna just speak about Angola and what shaped the country of Angola as it is today. So we know that Angola was inhabited, or the part of Africa that is now Angola was inhabited since the dawn of time by different tribes. And one of these most important tribes was or one of the most important parts of the country before the Europeans reached this area of the world was the Congo Kingdom. And Angola, or at least part of the what is now Angola, was under the Congo Kingdom for a significant amount of time. In 1482, while the Portuguese were navigating through the waters of Africa and trying to cartograph the African coast. A navigator with the name of Diocão was the first one to reach the Congo River, or as we called it at the time, or the Portuguese called it the Zaire River. This was in 1482, and he was also the first European to navigate through the Congo River all the way almost until the end. So he made 1,500 kilometers inside of the river into the interior of Africa. You have here a picture, not really a picture, but a depiction from a Portuguese history book, and on the left side you can actually see a portion of the navigation that he did inside the river. Nowadays, this part is actually the Republic of Congo, or Democratic Republic of Congo, but there is a slight part here in the top, Cabinda, which is part of Angola still, and all the south is part of Angola afterwards. Important also to note is that until the 19th century, basically Portuguese, and at a certain point of time, the 17th century, also Dutch colonization of the coast of Angola was really just the coast. It was only in the 19th century that different European powers, including Portugal, started to explore the interior of Africa. And with that said, Portugal had Mozambique on the east coast and Angola on the right coast, and the objective in the late 19th century was to connect both countries through what is nowadays Zambia. Um, what happened at the time was that the British also had a plan. They wanted to build a railroad from Cairo to Cape Town, so all through British territory, and there was an ultimatum in 1890 by the British towards Portugal, which was a very humiliating defeat for the country at the time, and also in many aspects what initiated the beginning of the Republican interests, or at least gave them a lot of force for the next few years, and some disillusion with the monarchy. So the British gave an ultimatum to Portugal to take out all the troops out of what is now Zambia, so that this territory would be occupied by the Brits. So this was called the Pink Map, as you can see here. And it's one of the biggest diplomatic defeats of Portugal ever. Portugal got that after the First World War, got also this part of Angola. All the middle was Rhodesia, and then of course got Mozambique, which is this shaped Malawi here. So Angola, continuing a bit into Portugal, and we covered this also during the Portuguese India banknote Portugal went into the dictatorship that lasted for 50 years, and Angola was really the jewel of the crown, I would say. So it was the possession that Portugal had overseas that was rich in diamonds, had oil. It was 12 times the size of continental Portugal, as you can see here, more than 12 times. And this was basically also a country where there was a lot of pressure, a lot of pushing at a certain point of time during, especially during the 50s, for a bit of colonization, or not colonization, but that Portuguese people will actually move to to Angola. That was the flag at the time from the Angolan province, and you can see here in different propaganda. For example, this is out of a stamp from the Portuguese Republic, and I know from not from experience because I didn't live during the dictatorship, but from my parents and my grandparents, that one of the most important things that was studied at the time in school was the train lines, rivers, etc., of Angola, Mozambique, and all the other Portuguese colonies. And this was basically propaganda to make it feel like this territory was actually ours. Also, the music that you hear in the background is almost like a fascist music. It's called Angola, It's Ours, and also part of the propaganda um, that was done by the the dictatorship at the time, as Portugal was pretty much isolated, especially after the 50s, beginning of the 60s, when both French, Belgium, and England gave up their colonies in Africa. That's not to say that, and we're going to talk about the biggest banknote of this issue, but all of these banknotes from the 1944 1951 issues are extremely beautiful. You can say that they are a bit racist, which they are. They are colonialist and they are also propaganda. But in terms of designs, I think this is probably one of the nicest set of banknotes that you can find worldwide. Um, the fronts in here, the 5 and the 10 Angolares, they are not so hard to find. Anything above the 20, it's basically very expensive, and hard, or extremely hard to even find one in almost uncirculated to uncirculated um, shape. So I actually got now in Spink in this November, I got these two banknotes, the 50 and the 100, in PMG 65 and 66. I will do another video about these two, but they are both specimens. They are not the issued banknote. And well, that's what I can get at the moment. They were already expensive enough. But today, the one that we're going to talk about is the 1,000 Angolares. This one that you see here is peak 82 and 86. This one is actually peak 82 because it's from 44. There's peak 86, which is from 51. But the difference is mainly just the color. So not really sure why there are two picks for this specific banknote. There should be just two different numbers, 88, 80, or 82A and 82B. The banknote book already categorizes it as just one type of banknote, nothing else. It's an extremely beautiful banknote. Like I said, I have the front specimen, which did cost me a small fortune. But here, important to understand are a few things. So this gentleman that you see here was John II, or João II of Portugal. He was the big, or the king that gave a lot of money and a lot of sponsorship for the discoveries of the new worlds. So what was during his reign that most of the African coast was discovered, and of course with his son Dom Manuel also went to Brazil. So he's probably one of the most important kings of Portugal for his endeavors that created the Portuguese Empire in the end. Also interesting, and the design is very complex, very beautiful, but all that you see here, especially here around, is a kind of a style that exists almost only in Portugal. Many monuments were built in this style. It's called manualism. It's a type of architecture that is a bit about Renaissance, but it's a very Portuguese style. Um, Not Renaissance. It's not Renaissance, but it's very ornamented, and mostly it's topics about the discoveries and about the sea. So you'll have shells, you'll have ropes, you'll have different arcs with different navigation um, um, instruments that they used at the time. And there's a lot of monuments that were built in this style. Important ones are the Convent of Christ in Tomar, or the Monastery of Belém in Lisbon. These are probably the two biggest ones, but this was a style that continued for the 16th century in Portugal in a lot of different monuments, and it's very beautiful. It's very ornamented. I'm happy that, well, I'm lucky that I was born in a city that has a lot of these, Lisbon, which has a lot of these monuments. So the banknote tries to also get a bit about this manualistic architecture here around, as you can see here and also here. The back is again about Diocão, like I mentioned, the guy or the navigator of Portugal that managed to for the first time, or the first European to navigate the Congo River. Here it depicts a scene where in Beja, which is a town in the southern part of Portugal, where when he comes back from his first trip to the Zaire River, he went back again a few years later. That he brings some of some of the things that he traded at the time with the different tribes that were inhabiting the what is now Angola or Congo. Here he explains to the kingdom. Also, you see here some natives at the time. So actually, a very gruesome scenery, I would say. So the back, I don't think it's that beautiful in comparison to the front. Here it's a photo of part of the riverbank in the Congo River, where Diocão and his crew did write down some Portuguese text. I cannot really read what it's written there. It says Portugal here. It's also in Latin, which I don't really understand fully. And also interesting here is this. This is the Christ of the cross is Christ, or the cross of Christ, and this is still used today in the Navy, in the Portuguese Navy, which is quite an interesting thing. It's also used in a football club called Belenenses, which is the third club of Lisbon, but that's a different story. I think also interesting in this, as details about this banknote, is the watermark. The watermark is actually the Republic. So although, and here the propaganda was about the glorifying Portugal in this banknotes, discoveries of Africa, but they also wanted to input, yeah, we're not a kingdom anymore. So the watermark is the Republic, or the face of the Republic, which is closer to the French one. Also interesting are two significant points also in the front. One is this phrase here in Latin, which is Pellegre, that means by the law and by the people, or for the law and for the people. And this is still used today in the military police. That's the motto of the military police still in Portugal. So very interesting. And the last one is the coat of arms of the Portuguese monarchy at the time. Some elements you still can see them in our coat of the coat of arms of Portugal used still today. In terms of values, and again, these are expensive banknotes. Um, the catalog of world paper money puts 82, well, impossible to find in any grade. Um, Pick 86, it says that you can get one in fine for $225 and extremely fine for 550. Good luck with that. I think the latest ones that were sold in the last few years was a very good for 1,300 and a very fine for 5,300 euros or dollars. The specimens are a bit cheaper, so you can get both of them or both of the 82 and the 86 for around 2,200 euros, $2,000, and they appear not as very often, but they do appear. And these are the different types of specimens and proofs because there are many. So the first one is actually my banknote, um, and mine is a front specimen, so it just has the front. But you see here the specimen from the Ruru cancelled. You see here one that is just cancelled in the middle. This one is just specimen, and this one is just cancelled with holes. So there are different types from the 82 and the 86 specimen. Also very interesting thing, it was a design, an early design that was put up for auction a few years ago. This ended up costing, I think, $9,000 was the end bid on this banknote, and this is basically the first drawing, I believe, or at least a redraw from this banknote, the one that we are discussing today. The big differences here are, of course, the color, the portrait of Don João II. It's a bit different, and this one doesn't have a watermark, although basically this was an initial drawing. I think that the one that was chosen in the end is a bit more complex and more beautiful than this one. But just wanted to show what else. I don't want to leave this video with this paternalistic or colonialistic view of Angola, so actually a bit about the modern day Angola. So what happened was that Portugal went into war in the colonies with the liberation movements. This happened in all the colonies except for São Tomé, and one more degrees, and ones were worse than the others in terms of war. Angola, the war lasted from 61, 62 to 74. And this was probably the one that was still more under control of Portugal. And this was not really because of the Portuguese, but because in Angola there were 3 different liberation movements that were already fighting each other, even while the country was not independent. This was the FNLA, which has as chief Roldão Roberto. It was MPLA, which had Agostinho Neto, and then UNITA from Jonas Savimbi. And when Angola in 1975 became independent, a civil war started that lasted until 2002. FNLA quickly lost the grip in the war, and it was basically just a 2-party war between a north part of Angola controlled with the oil controlled by MPLA, which was backed by mostly by the Soviet Union and by Cuba, and UNITA that had the south and the diamond control, and UNITA was backed by the west. Let's put it like this: it was backed by South Africa, it was backed by the US. What happened was that UNITA did have control of some parts of the territory for a long time, but they never won an election. Not saying that the elections were fair. So the party in that ruled Angola until today is the MPLA. Agostinho Neto actually died in 1979 in Moscow from cancer, and then José Eduardo Santos was the one that became the second president of Angola. So Eduardo Santos, which abdicated 3 years ago, give or take. And I've been to Angola a few times, And as everyone knew, the regime was extremely corrupt. It's a dictatorship, and he's now, or a lot of people from his family, etc., are being prosecuted, are being charged in different countries, especially his older daughter, also in Portugal. And the one that took his place was João Loureiro, um, someone from the military, and he's there for now for 3 4 years and trying to recover the country a bit in terms of corruption, in terms of economy, which is still struggling. And you can see in the banknotes of Angola, especially during the 80s and the 90s, that the inflation was rampant, and you had different denominations. But this is interesting, and this is the important that you look at most banknotes, and you will have these two fellows here, at least the ones from Independence. They just now, the new series doesn't have José Eduardo Santos, just Agostinho Neto. And that's it for today. I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you have any comments, just let me know. Thank you very much.